We shall move to questions without notice. Are there any questions? And I give the call to the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. Prime Minister, in order to hold a visa, individuals must pass a character test. Does supporting a listed terrorist organisation like Hamas pass Australia's character test?
The call to the Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, I noticed the Leader of the Opposition at a time where we were celebrating Olympians coming back to Australia, a moment of national unity, chose once again to seek division this morning in an interview on Sky News. And of course, under the former government, there's this organisation called the Taliban in Afghanistan, and that, of course, did not stop Australia from accepting people from Afghanistan, and rightly so. Mr Speaker, rightly so. Rightly so. Similarly, in Iraq, similarly in Syria, with the chaos that occurred, a special visa created for people from Syria, indeed.
Order.
And the ASIO Director-General, Mike Burgess, of course, made some comments about this on Sunday, and he did also.
When he was Minister for Immigration.
Order. The Prime Minister was in the middle of a statement from the ASIO Director regarding the question, but I'll listen to the Leader of the Opposition.
Well, thank you very much, Mr Speaker. The question was very tight. It was, does supporting a listed terrorist organisation like Hamas pass Australia's character test?
Order. Can we just— the members on my left, there was an unparliamentary remark made while the Leader was on his feet.
Do you want to deal with that first?
Can I just say, when members are on their feet raising a point of order, it is highly disorderly. And I'm just going to ask for some restraint by all members. Well, I heard a comment. I didn't hear what the word was, but I don't want to repeat it. If the Attorney-General has made an unparliamentary remark, I'm going to ask the Attorney-General to withdraw.
Yeah, I'll withdraw.
The Leader of the House.
The member for Barker should also withdraw.
I thank the House. Just allow the Leader of the Opposition, which is entitled to do under the standing orders, to raise a point of order.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. It's on relevance. This was an uncomplicated proposition that we just asked a straight answer from the Prime Minister. Does supporting a listed terrorist organisation like Hamas pass Australia's character test?
Yeah.
Yes or no?
Yep, I'm going to deal with this under the standing orders. As the Leader of the Opposition well knows, I'm not able to direct any minister, including the Prime Minister, with a yes or no answer or with a fact or a figure, which I can appreciate members opposite would like from time to time. The Prime Minister was, as I said, was reading a quote regarding this issue. If he was talking about another quote or another topic, but given that he is in the middle of a quote, he couldn't be more directly relevant to the question. The Leader of the Opposition has raised his point of order. I've shown him respect. I'm asking him to show the Chair respect as well. Give the call to the Prime Minister.
Thanks, Mr Speaker. I'll make two comments, one of which relates directly to security assessments, and they are done by the ASIO Director-General. If the Leader of the Opposition doesn't have confidence in that system, he should say so. It's exactly the same system that was in place when the Leader of the Opposition was the Minister for Immigration, who presided over these issues. But I do want to make another point relating to this, and the comments from the ASIO Director-General that he made on Monday, the 5th of August. He said this about social cohesion. This is really a matter for everyone. Community leaders, politicians, the media. Watch your words, watch your actions. There is a direct correlation between inflamed language, inflamed tension and violence. Mr Speaker, I seek to bring people together. This bloke seeks This
Order.
bloke,
Order. Members on my left. Order. The Leader of the Opposition.
this weak bloke over here, who
Order.
can't ever say
Member for Gippsland.
no to anyone on his own team, can't ever say no to attempting to raise tension in our
Order.
community, and is always looking for an opportunity to create division, which is what his off-the-cuff comments were about today. That didn't go to their shadow cabinet, didn't go to their caucus, didn't
Member
go
for
through
Fairfax.
any of their proper processes yet again.
The call to the honourable member for Macquarie.
Thank you, Speaker. My question's to the Prime Minister. What impact will the Future Made in Australia legislation have on Australian industry, workers and communities? And what stands in its way?
Call to the Prime Minister.
I thank the member for Macquarie for his question. At the heart of our Future Made in Australia legislation is a clear vision. Pretty simple proposition. We want Australia to make more things here. We want to be more resilient as an economy. We want more jobs to be created here as well. Because we can make things here, we can add value here. We can do more than dig things up out of the ground, export them, wait for value to be added, wait for jobs to be created and then import them back. We can build an economy where manufacturing is every bit as strong as mining,
Order.
where Australian
Number 4.
researchers and innovators can commercialise their ideas and turn discovery into industry. Our plan reflects our confidence in Australian workers, our respect for Australian scientists and innovators, our belief in the boundless potential of our regions and our resources, and our determination to work with business and industry to make the most of this moment in this critical decade. Now, above all, our plan speaks for our unwavering determination to shape the future rather than have the future shape us. Those opposite oppose a future made in Australia. They've called Australian manufacturing a graveyard, and the Leader of the Opposition even made the extraordinary statement of this, in a direct quote: "Everyone loves the thought of Australia made, but they're not going to compete with China." Well, I'll tell you what, Mr Speaker, I back Australia. I back Australian workers. I back Australian business. I back Australian innovation. I back the capacity of Australia to not just compete with the world, but to win. Whether it be miners in the Pilbara, or whether it be the workers at Gladstone, or the Illawarra, or the Hunter Valley, we can win. And that is what we want to do. We want to take Australia up the value chain. They want to talk Australia down. We have the best solar resources in the world. We have enormous space in this country of ours. We have the critical minerals, everything under the ground that will drive the global economy in this century. We have the skilled workers, we have the great universities and TAFEs, and also, of course, we have our own people, with the diaspora with connections with the entire world. The only thing that our nation does not have is time to waste, which is why we are getting on with the job.
Give the call to the Honourable the Deputy Leader of the Opposition.
My question is to the Prime Minister. Prime Minister, has any agency expressed any concern about any individual who has arrived from the Gaza war zone since October the 7th? And has any such individual had their visa cancelled?
The call to the Prime Minister. Order. The Leader of the Opposition. It is highly disorderly before...
He shouldn't get up early, Mr Speaker.
Order. Prime Minister...
Makes him grumpier
The Prime
than
Minister has
usual.
the call and is going to refer to the question. Prime Minister has the call.
Can I ask that be withdrawn?
Order. To assist the House, I'm going to invite... Thank you, the member for Newark.
Withdraw.
Order. I thank the member for New England. Order. If the House can come to order. The Deputy Leader was heard in silence. The Prime Minister is going to be given the same courtesy. He has the call.
One of their best on their front bench, Mr Speaker. One of their best. One of their best.
Order.
Mr Speaker, that question is perhaps of the entire time since Federation, perhaps the most broad. Has anyone, anywhere, any time done something to somewhere? Can I say this, Mr Speaker? Can I say this, Mr Speaker, that we have exactly the same process, with indeed the same Director-General of the security organisation, approved, just reappointed for 5 years, reappointed, that they had in charge with the same rules in place as the Director-General of ASIO confirmed on Sunday and confirmed last week, and the Director-General of ASIO has certainly not expressed concerns to me along any of the lines which were raised by the Shadow Minister.
Give the call to order. When the House comes to order, we'll hear from the honourable member for Calwell.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Treasurer. How will the disciplined and rigorous approach to investments as part of the Albanese Labor government's Future Made in Australia plan ensure the benefits are widely shared? What approaches were rejected?
Give the call to the Treasurer.
Thank you, Speaker. We'll miss the member for Calwell when she retires at the end of this parliamentary term, and this question shows why. Because a Future Made in Australia is all about modernising and strengthening our economy in a global economy powered by cleaner and cheaper energy. It's about grasping the vast economic and industrial opportunities presented to us by the world's shift to net zero. And the legislation before the House, as the Prime Minister said, provides the rigour and the robustness we need to attract more investment in the most cost-effective way. And that's why the AI Group said, and I quote, "This rigour brings a welcome degree of transparency and accountability based on clear policy principles." Now, this is what the Coalition is opposing when they say they'll vote against our legislation. They're voting against a proper assessment of spending. They're voting against communities benefiting from this investment. They're voting against aligning our economic and national security interests. Now, Mr Speaker, the Shadow Treasurer's bizarre and unhinged speech last night reads like it was cut and pasted from the darkest, strangest corners of the far-right web, and that's because it probably was. He bagged the Treasury Department that he wants to lead. He says that prioritising local communities, jobs and skills is Orwellian. He says putting national security and economics together is ideological. And he describes ARENA as a slush fund. Now remember, he was the Minister for ARENA for almost 4 years. It was truly mad and bizarre stuff. It was really unhinged and it was factually wrong as well. For example, he said that the Psi Quantum deal costs the Commonwealth $22.7 billion, when it's only $470 million. He was only $22,230 million off, Mr Speaker. Then he handed his dodgy maths to the member for Flynn, who repeated his points verbatim and stuffed it up as well. He shouldn't have taken the Shadow Treasurer seriously when nobody else does, Mr Speaker. Now, Mr Speaker, this is a contest between the Maddies over there and the mainstream over here. We are part of a new global orthodoxy, mainstream and middle of the road, which is all about sharing the views of the investment community here and abroad. We know that it would be self-defeating to let the global net zero opportunity pass us by. It would make our economy weaker, our people poorer and our country more valuable. We know we can be big beneficiaries of the global shift to net zero if we play our winning hand and if we reject the extreme and divisive and gaffe-prone and unhinged cooker politics being played by those opposite, which sees them in the third year of a 3-year parliamentary term and still without any credible or costed economic policies of their own.
Before I call the member for Fowler, I'll just do something. Order. I'd like to recognise some guests in the gallery. I inform the House that present in the gallery today, in the Special Visitors Gallery, is a delegation of US congressional representatives led by Representative Michael McCall, Chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. And I'm honoured to inform the House that present in the gallery today is a delegation from Timor-Leste. They are led by a member of the National Parliament, Deputada Sancha Margarita Tillman, and joined by Her Excellency Inés Maria del Alameda, the Ambassador of the Democratic Republic of Timor-Leste, and members of the Regional Development of Australia, including the Deputy Mayor of one of my local councillors of Ipswich, Councillor Nicole Jonick. Welcome to you all. I give the call to the honourable member for Fowler.
Thank you, Speaker. The question is to the Prime Minister. Prime Minister, a local business in Fowler has seen its energy bills go from $4,000 to $11,000 per quarter. Affordable energy prices are critical to fight cost of living pressures and the survival and competitiveness of many businesses. What is your government doing to fundamentally change the systems by which electricity is currently charged across Australia to create certainty and access to lower-cost mechanisms for consumers and businesses?
Call to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. We thank the member for Fowler for the question, and together with the member for Blaxland, the member for Fowler and I represent a wonderful part of the world with the member for Werriwa in south-western Sydney. And south-western Sydney people know that people right around Australia are doing it tough and small businesses are doing it tough, and they have a government which is providing relief today, Mr Speaker.
Order.
Providing relief
Members
today because today is when it is necessary. And the honourable member asked about small business and, I think, to be fair, about consumers and residences, and this government is providing relief to both of those groups. In relation to small business, we're providing direct relief. We're also providing, we have provided tax support to assist small businesses in making the transition to more efficient energy uses. The Deputy Leader of the Opposition scoffs and says, wow. Well, it is good to provide support to small businesses for the energy transition, Mr Speaker. We on this side of the House think that. The Opposition doesn't agree. The Opposition does not agree with providing that support to small business. The Leader of the Opposition, Deputy Leader of the Opposition scoffs at that and dismisses it. We're delivering $62 million in small business grants to improve energy efficiency to small business. In relation to residences, state and territory ministers agreed with me a couple of weeks ago to adopt a consumer energy roadmap, which I think the honourable member was referring to, which puts residences and consumers in charge of their own energy use, which gives them more opportunities to control the renewable energy in their house and in their driveway to make sure that they are getting the benefits, as well as the immediate relief that's been provided in the budget of $300 for every person who receives an energy bill across our country and for small businesses. Mr Speaker, that is support in the medium term to let businesses and consumers make the choices which put them in charge to reduce their bills and emissions at the same time. That is the real concrete plan the Albanese government's put into place now. Providing relief now, not a fantasy plan for decades' time to introduce the most expensive form of energy known around the world, a plan which might work in decades to actually introduce new energy, but that will be expensive energy. These are real plans today, providing relief to Australians who need that support today.
The call to the honourable member for Paterson.
Thanks, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Industry. Why is it imperative that we deliver a future made in Australia, and what stands in the way of that delivery?
Give the call to the Minister for Industry and Science.
Be chirpy.
Order.
Speaker, I just want to thank the member for their question, because they know, like everyone on this side of the House knows, how critically important our future made in Australia plans are, rebuilding manufacturing capability in this country. We lived the experience of the pandemic. The things we needed most weren't there when we needed them. We needed to rebuild our ability to make things in this country. We recognise the vulnerabilities of depending on concentrated supply chains that didn't deliver for us. And so being able to rebuild manufacturing capabilities, able to help us respond to global and national challenge like the transition to net zero, can also importantly create great jobs. Strong economies possess strong manufacturing capabilities, and they create strong, secure, well-paid jobs, which is really important to the nation. And so what we want to do is use our Future Made in Australia plans to revitalise manufacturing, grow jobs and make the transition to net zero easier for the nation. But what are we confronted with? We're confronted with, again, an unholy alliance, the Liberals, the Nationals, the Greens, all saying they'll vote against it. All saying they'd vote against it.
Order.
Now, I just note the presence of Hansard. Hello, I'm a big fan. I had to say I was going to call Hansard today because some of the debate that we saw from those opposite last night was something else. The Shadow Treasurer didn't fail to deliver. Now, bear in mind, this is the same Liberal Party that in government saw off 100,000 manufacturing jobs, saw off the car industry. In opposition, they also voted against the National Reconstruction Fund, and they also voted against energy price relief to help our manufacturers. And then you had the Shadow Treasurer say that the coalition has always supported manufacturing, followed by another clanger where the Shadow Treasurer said he'd worked for decades in manufacturing, in that noted manufacturer McKinsey & Co. I mean, thinking of Angus as a manufacturing worker is like thinking of Derek Zoolander as a coal miner. I mean, it just doesn't fit.
The Minister. Order. The Shadow Treasurer will cease interjecting. The Minister will. Order. The Assistant Treasurer will cease interjecting. Order. The member for Wannon has every right to raise a point of order, and he's going to be heard in silence. The member for Wannon has the point.
Thanks, Speaker. I just asked the Minister to refer to members by their correct title, please.
That is an entirely appropriate point of order, and no. Is the member for Menzies seeking the call? No. I'm just going to invite the Minister to remind himself the standing order that all members should be.
But it just doesn't work. Their commitment, their heart is not in it. They only ever talk about manufacturing to talk it down. This is a test for the parliament. This is a test for the parliament. Do we want a stronger economy or a weaker one? Do we want more jobs or less? Will the Liberals and Nationals join up again with the Greens to refuse to back our plans for a future made in Australia?
Order.
People will see where that mob
has
stands.
Concluded. Order. The member for Hume and the member for O'Connor trying to give the member for Page the call, and he now has it.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. Can the Prime Minister guarantee that no individual who participated in or supported the October 7 Hamas terror attacks, the worst mass murder of Jews since the Holocaust, has been granted a visa by his government?
Prime Minister has the call.
Mr Speaker, I refer to previous answers. We have exactly the same security arrangements that were in place when you were in government, when your leader was, or not your leader, but the leader of the Liberal Party was the Minister for Immigration, and I have confidence in the work that our security agencies do. They work their guts out to keep us safe. If you do not have confidence, you should have objected when we reappointed the leadership recently of our security agency.
The member for Bowman is now warned. The member for Bowman is on a warning. Following on from Monday, there will be consequences for actions. The member for Higgins now has the call.
Mr Speaker, my question is to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy. How is the Albanese Labor government delivering lower energy bills and a future made in Australia by investing in renewable energy? What has been the response to these policies, and what energy policies has the government ruled out?
Call to the Minister for Climate Change and the Minister for Energy.
Well, I appreciate the question from the member for Higgins. And the member for Higgins, Mr Speaker, knows that renewable energy is one of this country's great economic opportunities, Mr Speaker, as we on this side of the House do. When we see renewable energy, we don't run away from it. We're not scared of it. We embrace it as an economic opportunity for our regions in particular. When we see renewable energy, we see an opportunity for young people in the regions of Australia, whether it's the Hunter Valley or Central Queensland or Collie in Western Australia. to study and to participate in that revolution and to stay where they grew up if they want to and take those great jobs of the future. That's what we see in this country. Renewable energy means cheaper bills and more jobs for our country. Now, that is what the Future Made in Australia bill is all about, seizing that opportunity for our nation. We see that opportunity, and we've heard that the opposition is opposed to it. We heard from the Shadow Treasurer last night. And the Shadow Treasurer last night, in rejecting the Future Made in Australia plan, pointed to the community benefit principles in the bill, Orwellian he called them. Terrible stuff. I had a look. I thought, well, we've got to be fair. We've got to check. And he's on to us here, Mr Speaker. Some terrible stuff here. Promote safe and secure jobs that are well paid and have good conditions. I mean, that's socialism writ large there, Mr Speaker. Develop more skilled and inclusive workforces, including and investing in training of skills and development, broadening opportunities for workforce participation. I mean, we're on the verge of something terrible here, Mr Speaker. This is really high stakes. Engage collaboratively with it and achieve positive outcomes for local communities. No wonder they're against it. They're so opposed to it. They're opposed to strengthening industrial capabilities, including stronger local supply chains, i.e. sovereign capability for our country. I mean, this is verging on dictatorship. This stuff, Mr Speaker, is really, really dangerous material. Thank goodness we got the member for Hume standing there against it. But to be fair to the opposition, as we always try to be, they're dead against it in Canberra. They're dead against it in Canberra, less so in Perth, Mr Speaker. They're not so opposed to it in Perth. The Leader of the Opposition went to Western Australia last week. To his credit, good to be there. One of his longer visits to Western Australia, more than a few hours. No billionaire birthdays were attended to the best of our knowledge, Mr Speaker. I tell you what else he didn't attend. Collie, which is where they want a nuclear power station. He couldn't find his way to Collie. But he was asked on radio, have you been to Collie? And he said, I haven't been up to Collie yet. Collie's south of Perth, Mr Speaker. You go down to Collie. Bit of a yepping moment for the Leader of the Opposition in Western Australia, Mr Speaker. Not quite sure where he wants to put the nuclear reactors. Couldn't be bothered going there. Remember, the Leader of the Opposition has never been to Collie in his life, and he wants to put a nuclear reactor there. Now, during the break, I went to Port Augusta, I went to Central Queensland, I went to Lithgow, where the opposition is proposing nuclear power plants. Those communities want jobs and investment today, not in the 2040s, today. That's what we'll provide. That's what the Leader of the Opposition is not capable of. Concluded.
Call to the honourable member for Deakin.
Thanks, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. Prime Minister, under the Albanese Labor government's proposed visa arrangements for individuals from the Gaza war zone, will applicants be eligible for a permanent or a temporary visa?
The call to the Prime Minister.
Thanks, Mr Speaker. I'm not sure how that fits in with the housing portfolio. I saw the Manager of Opposition Business this morning speaking about how we needed less questions from the crossbench and more questions from the Shadow Ministry because they stuck to their portfolio of specialties. I saw that this morning, but that didn't last a matter of hours, Mr Speaker. It didn't last a matter of hours. Mr Speaker, the arrangements that we have in place are the same that were in place under the former government. The role of ASIO, the use of the movement alert list, the processes we use to vet visa applicants, all is unchanged.
The Prime Minister has concluded his answer. The order. The Minister for Infrastructure will cease interjecting. The Minister for Social Services will cease interjecting as well. So I can hear from the member for Tangney.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Education. What is the government response to today's NAPLAN result? And what is the government doing to build a better and fairer education system? What approaches to education has the government rejected?
Call to the Minister for Education.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and can I thank my friend, the legendary member for Tangney, for the question. Mr Speaker, we've got a good education system, but the truth is it can be a lot better and a lot fairer. The NAPLAN results out today are proof of this. What they show is the need for real reform. What they show is that about 1 in 10 children who sat the test are below the minimum standard that we set for literacy and numeracy. But that's across the board. What it also shows is it's 1 in 3 children from poor families, and it's 1 in 3 children from the bush. and it's 1 in 3 Indigenous children. What the results don't show, but I want to inform the House, is it's only 20% of those children who fall behind when they're little who catch up by the time they're in Year 9 in the middle of high school. And as a result, over the last 7 years, we've seen a drop in the number of children now finishing high school, from 85% down to 79%. That's what we've got to fix. That's what we've got to turn around. That's what the Better and Fairer Schools Agreement that I released a couple of weeks ago is all about, and I table it for the House and for members. It includes practical reforms like phonics checks and numeracy checks in Year 1 to identify kids early who are falling behind, and things like evidence-based teaching and catch-up tutoring to help those kids who fall behind. I've put an extra $16 billion on the table for our public schools, but it's not a blank cheque. It's tied to these sorts of practical reforms. The Northern Territory signed up, Western Australia signed up, and I want to do the same across the country. But, Mr Speaker, fixing this doesn't start at the school gate. It starts before that. This isn't just about children who fall behind at primary school. It's about kids who start behind. Kids who start behind when they start school, in kindy or in prep. And the fact is, it's children from poor families who are the least likely to go to early education and care and the most likely to benefit from it. And if we want to fix this, if we want to build a truly universal early education and care system, then first we've got to build up the workforce that will ensure this. And that's what the 15% pay rise that we announced for early educators is all about. Opposed by the Liberal Party and opposed by that guy in the Senate, what's his name again? Jared Rennick, who said that paying early educators more was going to destroy the family unit. This is the bloke that the opposition leader endorsed and said, quote unquote, was a great defender of Liberal values. Mr Speaker, if they're Liberal values, then God help us.
Give the call to the honourable member for Mallee.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Immigration. Has the minister been lobbied by anyone in his electorate for a visa for an individual from the Gaza war zone since October 7?
Call to the Leader of the House. I'll hear from the point of order, and we'll find a way through this. But we'll hear from the Prime Minister.
Point of order, Mr Speaker. This is a question asked of the member for Watson, not of the Minister for Home Affairs.
Yep. I'll hear from the manager.
Well, Mr Speaker, it's pretty clear that the member for Watson is also the Minister for Immigration, and so this is entirely within his ministerial responsibilities.
Yeah, in his capacity as minister, members can't ask a question about their own electorate or in their capacity as a member. So he may have been asked about from another member or another electorate as well. So I'm just going to ask the member to rephrase that to make sure that it's within the minister's responsibility, not in his capacity as a member.
My question is to the Minister for Immigration. Has the minister been lobbied by anyone in his electorate or any other electorate for a visa for an individual from the Gaza war zone since October 7?
That's fine. Yep. I thank the member. The Leader of the House has the call. Order. Members on my right will cease interjecting immediately. The Minister for the Environment will cease interjecting. The Leader of the House has the call.
Thanks, Mr Speaker. If I could explain how arrangements work within the portfolio. Every member here and I haven't been in the habit of sharing individual representations that members make to ministers. But if we go down that path, we go down that path. But every minister here, every member here makes representations. When representations are made when I take on this portfolio, I have a similar arrangement to what I had when I last took on the portfolio in 2013, which is anything with respect to my electorate, the representation I have to make either to a different minister or to the secretary of my department. And the responsible minister who deals with all ministerial interventions of that form, which I would make on behalf of my electorate, is the assistant minister. Anything in his electorate, he would write to me.
Call order. Keep a call order. When the House comes to order, the member for Lyons will cease interjecting. When the House comes to order, we'll hear from the member for Wills.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Early Childhood Education. How is the Albanese Labor government helping to alleviate the cost of living pressures for the critical early childhood workforce, and what has been the response?
Give a call to the Minister for Early Childhood Education and the Minister for Youth.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I thank the member for Wills for their question, someone who brings a wealth of experience and knowledge to this House, and someone who, like all of us on this side of the House, understands the transformative benefits of early childhood education for children and for families. Now, Mr Speaker, we've already made early childhood education and care more affordable, decreasing the out-of-pocket fees by around 11%. And that's good for families, and it's real cost of living relief for families. And now we're delivering an historic 15% wage increase for early childhood workers. Now, this means that by the end of this year, early childhood workers, around 200,000 of them, will get a pay rise of at least $100. And by the end of next year, that'll be over $150. This isn't just about giving them a fair and decent wage that they deserve. And it's not just about recognising their professionalism, their qualifications and the quality of care and education that they provide. It's also about ensuring that we don't lose those dedicated professionals so that we can undertake the ambitious task that we've set for ourselves, that ambitious task of achieving our vision of a universal early learning system that is affordable, that is accessible and that is inclusive. This $3.6 billion investment towards a wage increase will make a real difference and help ease the cost of living pressures for early childhood workers. But you don't have to take it from me. You don't have to listen to me on that. You can actually listen to what educators have said about this. Beck, who's an educator in South Australia, she says this. She says that she will be able to buy actual proper groceries and not live off sausages and bread. That's what this means to her. Gemma, who's an educator from Victoria, she said this increase will enable me to live comfortably and not stress financially paycheck to paycheck. That's what our educators are saying about this increase. But, Mr Speaker, it stands in stark contrast to what those opposite are saying about it, because those opposite want to make this all about outdated ideas of what modern Australia is. They want to talk about the Australian way of life. I don't even know what they mean when they reference the Australian way of life, as if somehow paying workers a decent wage is un-Australian. They want to continue to undermine and ignore the important contribution that our early childhood workers make to child development, to Australian families and, importantly, to the economy. What they don't want to do is listen to the workers. That's what they don't want to do. What they don't want to do is talk about real cost of living relief for the important workers in this sector. Instead, they want to focus on ideology. We want to focus on cost of living relief.
Concluded. The call to the honourable member for Ryan.
Speaker, my question is to the Environment Minister. Scott Reef off the Kimberley coast is one of the last untouched jewels in our oceans, home to 54 threatened species, including endangered pygmy blue whales and green turtles at serious risk if you give Woodside a permit to pump gas from under the reef. Will you use your power to prevent the Browse project proceeding in this term of parliament, or was your commitment to no new extinctions just a feel-good media release?
Order. Give the call to the Minister for the Environment and Water.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr Speaker. Well, I thank the member for her question, and As I've said in this place before, I can't give commentary on individual projects that may come before me as the minister. This project is currently, the assessment on it is paused while the Western Australian EPA and Woodside provide more information. But I would say to her, if she is genuinely interested in the transition that this country needs to make to a future that has more renewable energy, she should be backing this side. She should be backing the measures that we're taking on the transition to renewable energy, and she should be backing our environmental law reform, which is the best way to secure a future for the threatened species that she's claiming to be concerned about. Those threatened species would benefit from an Environment Protection Agency with stronger powers and penalties, with the ability to issue stop work orders, with the ability to audit proponents. The threatened species that the former Environment Minister, who did nothing during her term, loves to interject. Wouldn't it be great if only you'd ever had the chance to do a single thing? If only you'd had... Oh, to be fair, she hit a report. Mr Speaker, I want to say to the Greens political party, you have the opportunity to vote in the Senate for stronger powers, for an EPA, for stronger penalties, changing maximum penalties from under $15 million for wrongdoing in the environment to closer to $780 million. Is that the sort of thing you'd expect the Greens to support? Yeah, it kind of is. They have the opportunity to vote for millions of dollars of extra investment to protect threatened species through the establishment of Environment Information Australia. Apparently they're not interested in that either. The Greens political party has a chance to vote for stronger protections for nature. They should take it. And just incidentally, Mr Speaker, those sitting opposite also have the opportunity to see better, faster decisions made for business. We are investing around $100 million to speed up approvals. Environmental approvals under this government are twice as on time as they were under the previous government. We've already made significant improvements since the former minister was in charge. We'd like to see further improvements as well, along with better environmental protections. If those up there and the Greens political party really want stronger protections for nature, tell your friends in the Senate to vote for stronger protections for nature.
The call to the member for Cunningham.
Speaker, my question is to the Minister for Health. After a decade of cuts and neglect, how are the Albanese Labor government's Medicare urgent care clinics making it easier for Australians to see a doctor? And are there any threats that would make it harder for Australians to see a doctor?
The call to the Minister for Health and Aged Care.
Thank you, Speaker. And I thank the member for Cunningham. She's a regular correspondent indeed about better health care in the Illawarra. And like me, yesterday I'm sure she read in the Illawarra Mercury a piece by Kate McElwain entitled "My daughter was sicker than she's ever been, but we didn't end up in the ED." Kate's 5-year-old daughter had become violently ill on a Sunday and was at serious risk of dehydration. She wrote, "I knew if we didn't get help soon, we'd end up at the Wollongong ED with dozens of other people unable to get medical help on a Sunday night." But after a call with Health Direct, Kate was referred to the Medicare urgent care clinic at Corrimal. The sign at the opening of the clinic said that the wait time right then at the Wollongong ED was 5.5 hours, but she saw within 20 minutes 2 nurses, and within another 20 minutes her daughter was seen by a doctor who prescribed medicine and put her daughter on IV fluids. Happily, her daughter got much better, but she wrote, "Finally, I feel like there are good options for getting fast, high-quality treatment, even when your kids get sick at the most awkward of times." Mr Speaker, Kate's daughter is one of just 660,000 patients who have already been seen at our urgent care clinics since last July. And like Kate's daughter, 1 in 3 of them have been kids under the age of 15. Kids who need urgent attention and urgent care but don't need to go to a hospital. These clinics are operating 7 days a week for extended hours, and importantly, Mr Speaker, every single patient seen in these clinics is fully bulk billed, fully free of charge. And along with more bulk billing generally for GP visits and cheaper medicines, these urgent care clinics, Mr Speaker, are a really important part of our plan, our comprehensive plan to strengthen Medicare, to make it easier to see a doctor and help with the rising costs of health care in our country. And these measures are making a real difference to Kate's daughter, but to millions of Australians, Mr Speaker. But we know it is still tough out there, and we know that we need to keep doing more, and we're determined to keep doing more in health. But we also know, Mr Speaker, that all of this is under threat from those opposite. The Shadow Minister for Health, of all people, has said she doesn't support urgent care clinics. The Shadow Treasurer only this week confirmed in this chamber again they'll cut the funding, they'll close the clinics, and they'll force people like Kate and her daughter back into the emergency departments. And as for the Leader of the Opposition, Mr Speaker, we just have to look at his record. As Health Minister, he tried to cut $50 billion from our public hospitals and impose a GP tax on every single Australian. No wonder, Mr Speaker, this man was voted the worst health minister in the history of Medicare by Australia's doctors.
Order. Members on my right. The honourable member for Wannon has the call.
Thanks, Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Immigration. Minister, of all the visas that have been approved for applicants from the Gaza war zone since October 7, have any been granted without an ASIO security assessment being made?
Give the call to the Leader of the House.
Thanks very much, Mr Speaker. There is a process which ASIO is involved with which applies to every single visa. Every single visa issued by Australia, whether you come from the United States or whether you come from the Gaza Strip. And that is through what ASIO will routinely refer to as their watch list, what is technically referred to as the movement alert list. It is updated every 24 hours with every name that ASIO puts forward that they are concerned about. Every single visa that has been issued by this government and by the previous government went through that check against ASIO's information.
Call to the honourable member for order. The call to the honourable member for Werriwa.
Thanks, Speaker. My question is for the Minister for Skills and Training. How is the Albanese Labor government supporting Australians to get the skills they need to support a future made in Australia while easing the cost of living pressures? What approach to skills has the government rejected?
Call to the Minister for Skills and Training.
Thanks, Speaker, and I thank the member for Werriwa for her question and her keen interest in vocational education, an interest shared by her constituents, several thousand of whom attend one of the 3 local TAFE campuses in Werriwa. Now, thanks to the great work of the member for Gorton, we are rebuilding a skills and training system that gives every Australian the opportunity to get ahead. And I'm pleased to inform the House, Mr Speaker, that more than 500,000 Australians have now enrolled in fee-free TAFE. That is 500,000 people learning in-demand skills to work in the care sector, in cybersecurity, in construction and so many other fields in which we need those skills, easing cost of living pressures while helping businesses across Australia get the skilled workers they need. And on my 3rd day as Minister, I met Zoe, a young woman on her 3rd day, studying to become an early childhood educator at TAFE. Fee-free TAFE has given her the opportunity to study to do such an important job, caring for and educating our youngest children. And now, when she begins her career, she will get to earn more and keep more of what she earns, thanks to the Albanese Labor government, the government which has backed a 15% wage increase for our early childhood education and care workers. This pay rise, combined with fee-free TAFE courses, means that there has never been a better time to become an early childhood educator. And working with the states and the territories, a foreign concept to those opposite, the Albanese government has seen more than 10,000 people enrol in fee-free TAFE courses for childcare. Unfortunately, those opposite, like the member for Farrer, believe fee-free TAFE is wasteful spending. Speaker, they are wrong.
There is nothing wasteful about training childhood educators. There is nothing wasteful about delivering cost-of-living relief to those who need it the most. There is nothing wasteful about investing in Australia's future, in a future made in Australia. Now, the member for Farrer has not asked one question in question time about this portfolio in the 2 years that she has been the Shadow Minister. And more than that, her leader, the Leader of the Opposition, hasn't used the word TAFE in this place since 2004. Not since Facebook came into existence. It's like they are allergic to Australians getting cost-of-living relief and the skills they need while earning higher wages. But as we approach National Skills Week, the Albanese government is getting on with the job, investing in our workforce of the future to tackle the things that matter, getting to net zero, a future made in Australia, building homes and, of course, making childcare work for our families and early childhood educators work for our children's future. Well done.
Okay. I think the Deputy knows where this is heading. She's interjected a total of about 17 times, and I've specifically requested she not interject during that answer. She'll now leave the chamber under 94A. There are consequences for actions. Okay, we'll hear from the member for North Sydney.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Regional Development, Territories and Local Government. My community of North Sydney cares deeply for regional and rural Australia, recognising many in these communities are already survivors of some of the most significant severe climate events seen in the past decade.
No, the member will resume her seat for a moment. I'm not. Yeah, I want to hear from the Leader of the House here.
Mr Speaker, there is a habit from those opposite when particular members of the crossbench rise to ask a question of levels of abuse that do not go to other members. It's consistent and it just happened again before our eyes.
I'd like to hear from the member for Warringah.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I would like to raise with concern the behaviour as Standing Order 90 and 91, in particular in respect to the member for Maranoa, who was very loud in his guff, and as a leader of a party should show leadership to his members in how he conducts himself in the parliament.
As Speaker, I believe that members should be heard in absolute silence when they're asking a question, for the supremacy of respect for the member, but also the importance of the information that they're providing the House. I've been more than tolerant and fair with this process, but I'm asking all members in all parts of the chamber to respect one another when they're on their feet asking a question. You may not like what the content is, but every member is entitled to that supremacy. And there is a distinct audible noise when members of the crossbench or the non-major parties ask their questions. So I'm just asking members to show respect, and in that vein I'm going to ask the member for North Sydney to begin her question again, so she can be heard in silence, just as the Leader of the Opposition was, or a member of the government would be heard as well. The member for North Sydney has the call.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Regional Development, Territories and Local Government. My community of North Sydney cares deeply about regional and rural Australia, recognising that many in these communities are already survivors of some of the worst significant severe climate events seen in the past decade. As the Minister responsible for these communities and local government, do you support the inclusion of a climate trigger as part of the approval process for future developments? Or otherwise, what measures and protections are you arguing for to ensure these communities are spared the impacts of worsening climate events?
Call to the Leader of the House.
Mr Speaker, asking one minister their view about another minister's portfolio is not in order, although the question could be redirected to the appropriate minister.
I'm just going to ask the member to rephrase the question to make sure, as the Leader has said, redirecting and asking. Otherwise, another minister may have to answer the question.
I continue to direct my question to the Minister for Regional Development, Territories and Local Government. My community of North Sydney cares deeply about the development potential for regional and rural Australia, and arguably one of the biggest challenges that region and rural Australia are currently facing
is climate change. I would like to understand, does the minister responsible for regional development have an opinion on whether a climate trigger should be included as part of the approval process for future developments, or what other measures the minister is prepared to argue for to protect regional and rural communities?
The standing orders are very clear. You simply can't ask a minister an opinion. It's not under the standing orders. So we're moving to the next question. Give the call to the honourable member for Macon.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Defence Industry and Capability Delivery. What steps has the Albanese Labor government taken to accelerate defence capability and ensure a future made in Australia after a wasted decade?
Give the call to the Minister for Defence Industry and Capability Delivery and the Minister for International, Pacific and Development.
Thank you, Speaker, and I thank the member for Macon from the mighty defence state of South Australia for that question. Mr Speaker, we face the greatest strategic uncertainty since 1945, and the first duty of any Commonwealth government is to protect Australians and keep our country safe. In this, a consistent approach is essential with a unity of purpose. Mr Speaker, leadership is critical, but sadly under the last government, goldfish lasted longer than defence ministers. That has now changed. I'm delighted to inform the House that the Deputy Prime Minister has now served as Defence Minister longer than 6 of the 7 Defence Ministers in the last government. 6 or 7. And I've now served longer than 6 of the 7 Defence Industry Ministers in that wasted decade. That stability and unity is delivering results leading to accelerated capability. But, Mr Speaker, it starts with the budget. And this government has increased the defence budget by $50 billion over the decade and $5.7 billion over the forward estimates, something those opposite are refusing to match. In fact, they're arguing for a cut to the defence budget. We've increased the integrated investment program by $60 billion, and this increased resources and stable, consistent leadership is driving a very significant speeding up of capability compared to the approach of the last government in their wasted decade. Under them, there was to be 1 new frigate in 2034. Under us, 4 by 2034, the first in 2030. Under them, the first infantry fighting vehicle in 29. Under us, 2027 and made in Australia. Under them, the first heavy landing craft in 2035. Under us, 2028 and made in Western Australia. Under them, manufacturing missiles in 2035. Under us, it starts next year. Under them, contracts for armed drones were cancelled. Under us, the first armed drone arrives this year. Now, Mr Speaker, this focus on speed to capability will not only result in advanced equipment for the Australian Defence Force, it will create more high-skilled, well-paid jobs in the Australian defence industry. Through stable leadership and unity of purpose, we are bringing capability forward while supporting a defence future made in Australia. That is what a mature, adult government does, rather than the last one, which was addicted to all spin and no delivery. A former government whose defence minister, the now leader of the opposition, couldn't even deliver ships with safe drinking water for our sailors.
Give the call to the honourable member for Flinders.
The Minister for Immigration. Minister, have any visas for individuals coming from the Gaza war zone been granted without an in-person interview?
Give the call to the Leader of the House.
Thanks very much. When visas are issued within a war zone and people apply for visitor visas, the in-person interview is a different circumstance, but the security checks don't change, and that's what matters. What matters is that there will be no compromise on national security. None. When it comes to advice, because I've seen what Senator Patterson has said, and I've seen what Mike Burgess has said.
For Latrobe.
And if it's a choice between taking national security advice from a junior coalition shadow minister or the Director-General of our national security organisation, I'll back our security organisations any day.
Order. And the House comes to order. Order. No. The member for Moreton is warned. Member for Hunter has the call.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Regional Development, Local Government and Territories. What action is the Albanese Labor government taking to support regional Australia, including through the creation of a homegrown, low-carbon liquid fuel industry? And what approaches has the government rejected?
Call to the Minister for Regional Development, Local Government and Territories.
Not only is he a towering advocate for his community, he's also pretty tall. But he knows that a future made in Australia will be good for all regional Australia, but particularly in the Hunter. Labor's plan for a future made in Australia is simple. We want Australia to be a country that makes more things here, because making more things here will help to grow our economy. It will help to create good jobs in rural and regional Australia, because you should not have to pack your bags to build a career.
That's right.
Under our Future Made in Australia plan, one of our priority initiatives is the development of the Australian low-carbon liquid fuel industry. It will fast-track support for sustainable fuel with an initial focus on aviation fuel and renewable diesel, which will support emissions reduction in transport, in mining, in manufacturing and in ag. Currently, 60% of Australia's canola exports go to Europe to be used to produce biofuels. 400 kilotons of our tallow. And, Mr Speaker, we can do that here, and the industry agrees with us. GrainCorp said federal budget funding for low-carbon fuel initiatives is playing into its strategy to become a major player in the renewable fuel supply chain. The NFF said in their Future Made in Australia submission that the NFF has long supported the development of Australian bioenergy and low-carbon liquid fuels industries, with Australian agriculture playing an important role in the supply chain. And just last week, when I was in the member for Riverina's electorate, a beautiful part of the world, I spoke to locals in Wagga who said this exact thing, that they want to take advantage of this initiative to benefit their local economy. Because they know, just like we do, that regional communities stand to benefit from a future made in Australia. And, Mr Speaker, we're already seeing tangible outcomes, such as the MOU between Ampol, GrainCorp and IFM to explore establishing Australia's own integrated renewable fuels industry, which will include the supply of local homegrown feedstocks. But the Nationals can't yet convince the Liberals to stop saying no to everything. The Liberal parties dismiss the policy as billions for billionaires, failing to understand the importance of working with the private sector to build new Australian industries and to create more jobs in our region. I mean, those opposite, led by the Shadow Treasurer, who calls support for Australian industries a wasted effort, or billions for billionaires. They just don't understand the importance of working with the industry. But I mean, it's hardly surprising from a group that chased car manufacturers offshore and called Australian manufacturing a graveyard. That's not how you deliver for regional communities. On this side of the House, you've got a government with a positive plan for Australia who supports Australian industries, supports Australian jobs and supports Australian training.
Concluded. Call to the honourable member for Menzies.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Immigration. Minister, since 7 October last year, has any individual from the Gaza war zone applied for a visa and been rejected on the basis of their affiliation with or membership of the listed terrorist organisation Hamas?
Call to the Leader of the House.
The statistics on visas applied for and rejected are as follows. Since the 7th of October to the 12th of August, which are the statistics that I have available, 2,922 visas were granted, 7,111 were rejected.
Give the call to the honourable member for order. Members on my right will cease interjecting. Order. Order. The member for Barker, the member for Hume. Everyone will cease interjecting on my left and my right. The member for Holt will resume her seat. All right, just when the House comes to order, the member for New England will get the call. Order. Members on my right, I wish to hear the member for New England on a point of order.
Mr. Speaker, someone over there said the word sook, and they must withdraw it.
The order. I'd ask members to show some decorum. Order. Member for Moreton on a point of order, and it better be a point of order.
I withdraw.
I thank the member. Order. The member for Holt has the call.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Communications. How is the Albanese Labor government helping Australian families meet cost of living pressures to access broadband services and improve educational outcomes for students?
Give the call to the Honourable the Minister for Communications.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the member for her question, because she understands it's vital that we give young people right around Australia the tools they need to succeed in our modern education environment, and that includes access to the highest quality broadband. We know education doesn't end at the school gate, and the importance of remote learning was realised during the pandemic and the lockdown period. Prior to the election, Mr. Speaker, we discovered that there were some 30,000 families right around Australia with school students at home whom, for whatever reason, didn't have access to the internet, and that exposed a digital divide in children's learning. And that's why, upon coming to government, we committed $8.8 million to the School Student Broadband Initiative, providing families in need with real cost of living relief through a free broadband service that will now run until the end of 2025. Mr. Speaker, I was pleased to recently join the Prime Minister at St John the 23rd College in Stanhope Gardens in my electorate to hear from the teachers and students about how access to the internet was integral to their learning. As the Prime Minister said, access to the internet is as basic in 2024 as a pen and paper was a generation ago. And we want to ensure that no Australian child is left behind in their learning due to cost of living pressures. Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to advise the House today that more than 16,000 families who were without broadband at home have now been connected to free internet through our initiative. For a family who gets connected today, they'll get a free internet service under the scheme until the end of next year, and that is saving them around $1,000. That's real cost of living relief. Mr. Speaker, Anglicare Victoria, which manages the National Referral Centre to help connections to the program, told us about a mother of three who had never had the internet at home but was finally able to get her family connected. And the opportunity is especially significant for a youngest child who has autism and attends school part-time. Now her child can keep up with their studies using a specialised program that tracks and submits completed work while maintaining access to teachers. Mr. Speaker, the Albanese government is delivering on our election commitments, including this one, delivering real cost of living relief for families in need and helping to improve access and opportunities in education for all Australian children wherever they may live. The initiative remains open for nominations until the end of the year, and any Australian family can contact the National Referral Centre on 1800 954 610 to check their eligibility and get assistance to set up their free connection and take up the benefits of this transformative scheme.
Call the Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I ask further questions to be placed on the notice paper.